Support the author of today's story by going and checking out his YouTube channel, Black Volumes. He posts similar scary stories that you would find on this channel, and I think you'll really enjoy them. Give it a try. And without further ado, let's get into today's story. Have any of you ever wanted to go back in time? That was the question Mr. Milton asked the other attendees at the bi-weekly bereavement support group. I never did learn his first name, which, given how intertwined our two lives became, may seem rather odd. And given the horror that followed, of course, it makes perfect sense. Besides, grief is a disarming thing, a thing impossible to describe. I could lie like other sufferers and offer a simplified explanation of the experience, could reduce it to a mere dulling or heightening of emotions. However, it's far more complex than that. Grief is a vulnerability which exposes that buried side of oneself, the ugly, that second ego buried in some distant nook of the mind. You might not even believe that yours exists, but it does. And the right kind of trauma can unlock it. That's what happened to me. It's what happened to Mr. Milton. In answer to his question, the facilitator of the group let a deep sigh free. Sure, I think we've all wanted to turn back the clock and see our loved ones again. Mr. Milton nodded, but said nothing. He continued looking down at his twiddling thumbs. The man was in his late 40s, sporting graying hair, a slight gut, and rimmed glasses. He was what some members of the group teasingly called fat thin. One of those sorts whose strength comes from hard labor and toil, rather than gym sets or healthy eating. Yet in spite of his heavy-set form, the man always seemed paper-thin to me. Seemed a quarter there, as one member once whispered to me, while the rest of the grievers were half there. Mr. Milton was the worst of us. Does this mean you'd finally like to share with the group? The facilitator asked. This is your 5th appearance. You miss a few groups here and there, but I keep count. And listen, I will always respect your right to share. But how about you start with your name? The man shrugged. Mr. Milton will do. Well, that's fine, that's great. It's just nice to hear you speak. Well, Mr. Milton, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself? No pressure, of course. Mr. Milton grumbled. I think I'd rather listen. I find it immensely helpful. Take Sarah, for instance. My eyes widened, and I, having been stuck in an absent-minded state until that moment, tuned more attentively into the conversation. Why did he say my name? Your story, Mr. Milton continued, with magnified eyes studying me. It was so like my own, the emotions you described. The resentment, the anger. You're just like me, and I've needed to find someone like that. Those words really didn't sit well with me. Even written down, they seem untoward, threatening, yet nobody swooped to my aid. As I said, grief is a disarming thing. We all assumed Mr. Milton to simply be like us, heartbroken. He wasn't himself, he could be forgiven for his oddities. My gut said otherwise, and I should have trusted it. I shifted uncomfortably in my seat. Well, I'm glad my story, helped you. I'm so sorry for your father. Mr. Milton continued softly. Losing a parent is... I'm sorry. Losing anyone is hard. I mumbled. Do you mind me asking who? My wife. Mr. Milton hoarsely interrupted. But that's enough, okay? Lucy nodded hurriedly, interjecting the moment that our conversation risked becoming heated. As I said before, Mr. Milton, there's no pressure to share, but I'm so glad you've opened up just a little bit today. You're right, listening to others is helpful. I just want you to know that we're here for you too. That's nice, the man coldly whispered. His gaze still hadn't unglued from my face, and I was starting to feel quite unsafe. We're all here for each other. I don't know whether the other members of the group were simply unaware of Mr. Milton's sudden and alarming fascination with me, or turning a blind eye given the nature of the group, the nature of our collective trauma. Whatever the case, for the remaining half hour of the session, I barely focused on anything the other members of the group were saying. I looked at the floor and tried to ignore Mr. Milton's unhealthy stare. At 9 o'clock, when the session wrapped up, I hurried across the town building's blackened car park. I rummaged in my pocket for my keys while standing right outside my Nissan Micra, standing so close to freedom, to safety no matter how small and claustrophobic that box. Before I made it inside my vehicle, however, there came what I had feared, what I had predicted, thanks to the raised hairs on the back of my neck. Pursuing footsteps, every woman's greatest fear. And then, "Wait!" yelled Mr. Milton's unmistakably weathered yet insistent voice. "Sarah, wait!" I turned despite my better judgment and froze to the spot in terror as the wheezing man hurtled towards me. "This is how I go," came that timid and resigned and terrified voice at the back of my mind. Thankfully, he came to a stop about 3 or 4 feet away from me, panting heavily with hands against his knees. "Are you okay?" I asked weakly, thumbing the button on my car key. I winced a little at the digital bleep, scared that I might elicit some sort of aggravated response from the man before me, that he might become angry simply because I had been trying to run away. But he was focusing on something else. He was a single-minded man. "Oh, blimey, you move quickly," Mr. Milton spluttered. "Listen, I wanted to ask you something." "I have to get home," I choked out, fumbling with the driver's handle behind my back. I watched other members of the bereavement group flock to their vehicles, which settled me a little, but I was aware that the car park would soon be empty, save for Mr. Milton and me. My heart was thumping in my chest. I had to escape while there were still people around. The man struggled to catch his breath. "Look, I see that you feel apprehended, but just hear me out. Golly, I'm winded." "My mom's waiting for me," I croaked, clicking the door open. It wasn't a lie. I moved back home after Dad had died, as I was worried about my mother living on her own. She had been severely depressed. And then I continued. "I would be happy to talk during next week's support." "You and your mom need what I'm offering," Mr. Milton half barked. I didn't like the sound of that at all. And most frightening of all, not a soul in the car park seemed to notice. They hadn't noticed my discomfort in the well-lit meeting room, so why did I expect them to notice me in an unlit car park? And before I had a chance to respond, "Have you ever wanted to go back in time?" Mr. Milton asked softly, repeating the question from the group. I gulped. "I'm going to get into my car now because I don't feel comfortable, okay?" "Wait, just wait." It wasn't a rhetorical question, the man said, hurriedly fishing around in his pockets as I lowered myself into the driver's seat. Slow and steady movement seemed safest. "Before you shut the door, just take a look at this." I don't know why I kept the door open. I've never been a curious sort, never more curious than anxious at any rate. Yet on this haunting night, since this strange man had set his sights on me in the meeting room, I'd felt different, felt something awaken within me. That was the truth that I hadn't wanted to admit to myself. Below my fear, I was desperate. Desperate to know why Mr. Milton kept talking about time. In all honesty, from the moment that he asked the group that question, I had already known the truth. That, much as he had claimed, it wasn't rhetorical. And when I eyed the little metallic pebble in the man's palm, I felt something stir and shift deep within me. Felt confirmation that I had been right to push through the terror and give this man the time of night. I don't know what I believed in that moment, but I didn't shut the door. This has to mean something, I told myself. As afraid as I felt, I still reached out and took the device from his hand. "What is it?" I whispered, wanting confirmation that my churning stomach had the right idea. "I think you know." He replied gently, taking a knee outside my door and bringing his face closer to my level. "You feel it, Sarah, just as I did when I took it." My eyes enlarged. "Took it?" The man nodded. 5 weeks ago, I had finally returned to the sales office from bereavement leave. I didn't want to go back to work, but it turned out to be a blessing from the universe. You see, I spotted this object dropping out of a man's pocket. An important man, a contractor from some. Well, I'm not supposed to talk about it, but I knew somehow that I was looking at something which would fix me. So yes, I took it. And I need you to stop pretending, Sarah. I know you want to take it too. You feel it. That's why I chose you." "Chose me," I internally repeated, face likely turning a ghostly white. My fear reflex was trying to kick back into action, but I was intoxicated by the stone-like item in my palm. Tears trickled down my cheeks. "It's a way back." "Yes," Mr. Milton whispered. I somehow understood the device just by looking at it, just as you do now. Like it was calling to me, like something from time itself was calling to me, calling me towards the thing. "It's impossible," I whispered, hand trembling as I sat in that driver's seat, eyeing the smooth and silver stone in my hand. "Is it a piece of technology or something else?" The man shrugged. "I don't know." "You seem to know very little," I said. "I know that I squeezed it," he replied, placing a hand over mine to wrap my fingers around the device. It slowed my heart, slowed every organ in my body. The world around me came to a crawl and then a total stop. And after a few moments of pause, the chain of time started to pull backwards, slowly first, then at a pace too blindingly quick to follow. Time raced a year backwards and finally slowed to a stop again. I had reached a time at which Liv was still around. And for 2 blissful days, time passed at a normal rate. I got to relive those hours with my darling wife. But then to my horror, time sped up again. Days and weeks and months raced forwards until I returned to the present day. 5 days ago, right when I had started. I call it a boomerang. It'll fling you back in time, but you'll always be pinged straight back to the starting point. There's no clinging to the past. The boomerang always comes home. I paused for a few moments, trying to listen to the logic that would refute this man's tall tale, but I felt it. He was right. There was something in the device here from time itself that called to me. "Why wouldn't you change the past?" I asked. The man grimaced. "Liv died of stage 4 cancer 6 months ago, Sarah. There would be no saving her even if I were to go 10 or 20 years back in time. It's an inevitability. I can only keep going back 12 months to enjoy a little more time. I may be rewriting the timeline with each trip, but I remember it all. If there were a way to beat the boomerang and stay for more than 2 days at a time, I would take it. What do you mean? You can just keep using this forever. You'll get to see Liv again and again and again, I said, feeling my skin warm as Mr. Milton held my fingers around the little pebble. I was too awestruck to feel immediate fear, but it was there lurking beneath. He was far too forceful about me holding onto that thing. I can't keep doing this forever, Sarah. Look at me. My pale skin, my cracked skin. I know you've noticed me in the groups. I'm not well. The boomerang, it takes a toll on the body. We defy nature when we use it. I might only be able to survive a few more trips. Alternatively, if I could find a way to remain in the past and not be forced to remake the return trip to the present day, I would get another year with Liv. A whole year, Sarah. That's a lot of time. You know, I did try gaming the system, so to speak. I tried using the boomerang a second time once I had reached the past. After bouncing from 2025 to 2024, I thought that I would be able to bounce from 24 to 23, boomerang even farther back in time. But it didn't work. So there's no way of beating it. No way of getting more time with your wife, I asked. Is that why you're giving away such a precious thing to me? Mr. Milton smiled gently but disingenuously. I will never give up, Sarah. I just want help. Help from somebody that I can trust to not steal this precious thing from me. I suppose I want a fresh set of eyes. Maybe you'll see something that I've missed. Some way of spending more time with Liv. Of course, you're right that taking a short break might be good for me. Maybe my body will heal. Maybe I'll survive several more trips with the boomerang. Get more time with her. So what do you say, Sarah? Do you want to use it? How could I say no to even a second of extra time with my dad? I asked. Upon my acceptance, Mr. Milton became a little teary-eyed. I've spent weeks looking for someone to help. You've made me happier than you'll ever know, Sarah. Just make sure you keep the boomerang on your person, okay? I once left it on a coffee table and I was walloped by both a headache and severe nausea once I stepped away from it. I don't know what would have happened if I had kept my distance for too long. Fortunately, these symptoms abated once I had rushed over and picked it back up. I felt my heartbeat begin to slow, and Mr. Milton seemed suddenly to be speaking glacially. Everything was moving glacially, including the upturning of his untrustworthy lips. It's happening, Sarah. You'll see your father soon. You said that he died in October of 24, right? Well, the boomerang will take you back to last June, 4 months before he died. You'll have more than enough time to see him again. Maybe I'll be able to save him, I whispered. Mr. Milton continued smiling that salesman smile and nodded. Maybe. And then the wheel of time finally braked. The man froze with that dreadful expression eyeballing me and the world fell silent. The car stopped in the road. If my heart had been capable of racing, it would have. I've never been so frightened, so uncertain of my own decision. Moments later, all was reversing, even me. Time ripped backwards and I unleashed a backward scream of horror as my own body retraced its steps, retraced days and then weeks and then months of steps. And as the world rushed past me in an even quickening blur, my ability to scream eventually diminished. My ability to do anything diminished. I was helpless. A rewinding videotape, aware only of pounding pain and the terror of losing one's free will. I felt broken in the face of this almighty power yanking me backwards through time. I believed the trip would kill me. Sarah? I had been pacing through the time-frozen living room of my parents' house weeping, and then I lifted my head to see an impossibility. Not only that time speed had returned to normal, and it started to pass forwards again, but... Dad? I whispered. Mr. Milton had been telling the truth. It was June of 2024. The boomerang had flung me a year backwards, flung me to a time at which my deceased father was still alive. A man who, 4 months from that moment, would die in a motorway collision with a drunk driver. After managing to convince my parents that my tears in the living room had just stemmed from a hormonal moment, I set my sights on the task at hand, saving my father from his fate 4 months from then. I tried to convince him to sell the car. I couldn't think of any other way to prevent a catastrophe that would take place 4 months from that moment. I thought of the butterfly effect, that if he changed to something as drastic as his vehicle, maybe he would never end up on that road in October, never be killed by that inebriated lunatic. But Dad said that his current car was fine and that he didn't have the money for an upgrade anyway. Wouldn't until at the very least the end of the year. That caused my stomach to lurch, but I told myself that even something as small as having that conversation with him might alter the course of history, might prevent him from driving along that fateful road in 12 weeks. Instead, I decided to cherish the time that we had together, take a page out of Mr. Milton's book. We played football in the garden, which was something that amused my mother. A 20-something and a 50-something kicking a ball around haphazardly on the grass. And in my defense, I could feel time starting to pull me forwards again. Things were starting to move too quickly, but that was okay. I would ask Mr. Milton to use the boomerang again. I would see my dad as many times as I could before I started to feel the toll on my body. However, then came the nightmare that would make me swear to never turn back the clock again. I saw him through the slats of the fence surrounding my parents' garden, a black figure, like a silhouette but one that had lost its clarity around the edges. It had started to fuzz and buzz with a sort of paper-cracking frequency that pained my ears. I started to whimper, and my ever-quickening father noticed. "Upset that you're losing," he teased, 1 foot atop the ball. "I think we're at 5-0 to me now. You're just as bad as you were when she was a kid." Mom scoffed. "Let her score." Where would be the satisfaction in that? Dad laughed and then he stopped when he realized that my whimpering was genuine, and he turned to follow my gaze. "What the?" Dad whispered. My mom screamed. "What is that?" They could see him too. The buzzing, crackling, glitching silhouette behind the fence. And he was only starting to crackle more quickly and feverishly as the time speed of the world quickened. Our 3 screams merged into tiny, high-pitched, fast squeals as the figure began to ascend the fence, moving at a frightening pace. And I, in spite of the world moving so quickly, did not seem to have a brain capable of thinking quickly enough to react, quickly enough to kick my body into action. The black shape tore across the grass, sunlight from above not even scratching the surface of his void-like form. My dad disappeared, my mom disappeared. Everything but that thing disappeared, and I couldn't tell what was happening. I felt the world and its colors start to merge and blur as the man approached. The last thing that I saw was that blackness filling my vision. The last thing I felt was one of its hands clawing at me, tearing through my shirt in flash. I screamed, this time forwards and quickly as days, weeks, and months raced forwards. I don't know what I saw on that day, don't know how I survived it, but when I returned to the present day 1 year later, I was no longer sitting in my car. I was standing outside the town building following a bereavement session, the heartbreaking sign that I hadn't saved my father. And Mr. Milton was standing in front of me. "You're back," he murmured. "That was risky. God, what a rush. I have memories of 2 different timelines, 2 different courses of history. It must be the boomerang. Must be something it does to the people who use it. I was trembling as I handed the device back to him, and then I looked down at my blouse. With ginger hands, I lifted it to reveal 3 claw-shaped scars that had healed across my midsection. Mr. Milton's eyes widened. "What happened to you?" I started to blubber. It attacked me. Why didn't you tell me about it?" "It?" the man asked, puzzled. "A silhouette," I wheezed. "A figure, it came for me." His eyes took their turn to widen. "You've been talking about that over the past weeks." "What?" I whimpered. "While you were boomeranging forward in time, I mean," Mr. Milton explained. "We may rush forwards through time, but we still live it, still experience it, though perhaps only in a ghostly sense. After all, until the day that I first talked to you, I'm sure I didn't quite seem myself now, did I? Not quite present, I mean. Anyway, you won't remember the new events of the past year for, anywhere from a few minutes to a few hours. It takes the brain time to catch up. It's hard to remember the things we've done while racing forwards at such speed. Anyway, you talked of a black shape watching you, said that it tried to kill you in your parents' garden, and disappeared into thin air once the boomerang started pulling you forwards. You were hazy about what had happened after." "Wait a minute," I interrupted. "Why is my father still dead? You implied that even though I moved at a speed too fast to remember, I still lived through the last year, right? Well, why didn't I do something in October to stop Dad from getting killed by that driver? I had all of my memories from the future. I could have done something." "It wasn't the driver that killed him, Sarah," Mr. Milton whispered, looking down at the boomerang with something verging on shame, but then he shrugged it off. "It was that thing in the garden, on that day." My eyes widened and I dropped to the floor. All of the pain rushed back to me, the grief. It felt twofold from 2 different deaths of my father, 2 timelines that I remembered. "Why have you done this to me? I don't ever want to see you again, and if you have any sense, you'll destroy that boomerang, or bury it so nobody else is ever tempted to." "It didn't just kill your father," Mr. Milton continued, eyes pooling with tears. "I'm sorry, Sarah." And then I remembered the other horror. 3 weeks after Dad had been killed by that thing, Mom had been driven by madness, madness at not only his passing but at seeing a force that she did not understand. She had taken her own life, and I didn't blame her. The nightmare had fractured me too. I remembered my dad lying in a bloody pool on the grass. The silhouette had gone, not of its own volition. Mr. Milton was right that the boomerang, upon flinging me forwards, had seemed to expel the creature. Moments before, it likely would have torn me to shreds too. "And I'm not being forthcoming with you," the man quietly admitted. "I've seen this figure too, countless times." I looked up at him with eyes of rage. "You didn't tell me? You just let me use that thing knowing that I was putting myself in danger, knowing that I might." "It never hurt me," Mr. Milton roared. "It only watched, always watched, never touched." Like I said, I began stepping down from the town building, eyes set on my car. "I don't ever want to see you again." "But your mother," he whispered. "We've been talking about this for weeks, that as soon as you had finished boomeranging back to the present, you would go back in time, try to save them both this time. She was never meant to die." "And you killed her," I screamed, face stained with tears. "You came into my life 2 days ago, or what feels like 2 days ago, and you promised to bring my father back to me, but instead you took both him and my mother away." "We have to try, Sarah," Mr. Milton insisted. following me across the unlit car park once again. That was what you said. Why do you care? I cried, turning to face him. I didn't learn anything. I didn't find some way for you to get more time with your wife. That boomerang is going to kill you. One try was enough to nearly kill me. Listen, when your memories come back to you and you remember the months of grief over your mother, you'll also remember that you wanted to try again, Mr. Milton said. Maybe that ghostly, half-present version of me wanted that. You're right. I saw you during the sessions, zonked out and inhuman. And even now when you seem fully present, you still give me the creeps. So don't come near me ever. Keep it, Mr. Milton said, thrusting the boomerang into my hand. I'll see you at the support group in 2 weeks, and we'll talk more about how you're feeling then. I wanted to thrust the device back into his hands, but the man stepped aside to let me get to my vehicle, and I wasn't going to pass up the opportunity to finally escape from him. I got home, collapsed in bed, and rotted away there for the entire weekend. The device sat on my bedside table mocking me, begging to be used again. But every glimpse of the red scarring on my stomach while I showered reminded me that the horror that I had endured was real, that I wasn't going to let that happen ever again. As the next 2 weeks went by, I focused on work and friends and focused on the 2 sets of timelines in my head. My journey into the past had changed quite a few small things in my daily life, dynamics with relationships and so forth. But I still remembered the old events of the past year. I hoped those old, outdated recollections of a dead timeline would pass in time. The worst part of this flooding of memories from the new timeline was that I realized Mr. Milton had been telling the truth. I did have the urge to use the boomerang again, an urge to save my mother, even after how horribly wrong it had gone with my father. But he was meant to die, I told myself. My mom wasn't. And that was what spurred me to do it. Mr. Milton pulled me aside at the end of the bereavement group session, and there was a smile on his face. Even less pleasant than the first time, there was a smugness to it. I knew you'd come around, he said before I had even spoken a word. A couple of weeks with the boomerang is all it. This will be the last time, I warned. I'm going to find a way to save my mother and then I'll never use it again, okay? You do what you want with it, but never involve me. Mr. Milton nodded. And do you mind, just before you go back, letting me use it? Letting me go on another trip to see my wife? I frowned. Now that I've used the boomerang, I remember everything, don't I? So this time, if you change the timeline, I'll remember the old one, right? The man sighed. Yes, Sarah. I'd rather not to remember too. No, 3 different versions of the past year's history, I said. He groaned. There are only ever minuscule differences, Sarah. Changing my history will hardly change yours, despite our living in the same city. Besides, the memories of slight differences in those old overwritten timelines will fade with time. How clearly do you remember specific events from specific days 5 or 6 years ago? Just allow an old man this, won't you? I had barely handed the boomerang to him before the world had shifted, cut and transitioned to me sitting in the driver's seat of my car with Mr. Milton sitting next to me. Jesus, I gasped. Thank you, he whispered. It's been a long 2 weeks. I needed my fix. I remembered a year's worth of, as he said, minor events happening differently, but still 3 different timelines from a single year. That's a lot of overlapping and confusing information to hold in one's head. And just remember that the old timelines no longer happened. You'll forget them. So, what's your plan? How will you save your mother? I sniffled, eyeing the boomerang in my palm and trying to focus simply on the pitter-patter of rain against the windscreen. I don't know. I'll talk to her, tell her it's okay. That will overcome what happened to Dad. But she doesn't need to hurt herself. Mr. Milton nodded. So, you're gonna go to her house and talk to her? I shook my head. No, she'll be at my flat in the city. I remember now. I moved her there after that thing had killed Dad. She couldn't stay there after what had happened to him, and I wanted to keep an eye on her, but it seems that I still didn't do enough. Oh, you will this time, but maybe you want to take her somewhere to clear her head. It mustn't be good for her to be cooped up in an inner city apartment block. I don't know, I sighed. What about the beach? The theme park has some great rides. Yeah, she has always liked that place. Right, the man roared triumphantly. Well, that's where you'll take her then. I'll see you in just a moment and everything will be back to normal. You and your mom will both be alive and well. I nodded, smiled, and then squeezed the boomerang in my hand. And it started again. The slowing, the stopping, the reversing, all accompanied by a throbbing headache and terror like nothing that I had ever experienced. And then I was back in my city flat, cuddling my despondent mother on the sofa. It took a lot of persuading to get her to go to the beach with me, but it was a lovely day in late June of 2024. A day not to be wasted, as I told her. And being out and about with me did trigger sort of a mom mode. She fussed over whether I had remembered to apply sun cream. Perhaps she had been welcoming the distraction. I knew that 2 days was very little time to change the mindset of a woman only a week away from taking her own life, which was why I had already started to work on my failsafe. Before being flung back into my own time in the present, I was going to have my mother sectioned. That would keep her safe for the next year, surely. I could feel my heart beating a little quicker at that prospect, the prospect of betraying my mother like that. This was how I saw it, but the root of my anxiety was deeper than that. Something was looming over me, a heavier shade of black. And as I waited for my mother outside the theme park's toilets, something entirely unexpected happened. "Sarah!" The voice rang out from behind me. I spun my head and widened my eyes. It was Mr. Milton, and he knew me. 10 months before even attending the bereavement support group for the first time, this man knew me. It can't be, I whispered, realizing what that meant. The man stopped in front of me, panting. "Sarah, you okay? Do you have the boomerang?" "What's happening? Is something wrong?" "Do you have it?" he screamed. "Yes," I yelled, fishing the device out of my pocket in a panic, expecting him to say that all had somehow gone wrong again. But then Mr. Milton's demeanor shifted. His hand shot forwards and plucked the device from my palm, and he smiled. And that was when I took a closer look at him. I saw his neck covered in gaping wounds, 1,000 tiny perforations, as if he had started to rip apart at the seams. There were similar cuts on his hands which were cradling my boomerang lovingly. When I thought about it, I realized that he had been covering up his body with gloves, thick sleeves, and even a buttoned-up shirt at bereavement sessions. "How long have you been like this?" I whispered. "You were right, it's killing you. And how are you even here? This is before we met." He smiled. "It took weeks for me to find the right kind of person, a person desperate enough to do this thing. You have to be deranged to put your body through such torture, Sarah. Mentally unwell. Just like us." "What's happening? I don't understand." "Well, it seems as if the future version of me told you to come to the theme park," he said. "And you did just that, making it easy for me to find you. Easy for me to try something new. And then Mr. Milton dipped his hand into his pocket and produced a second boomerang. I felt my head strain, felt the world itself strain. These weren't two unique objects. It was the same boomerang. That's a paradox, I whispered. I'm counting on it. Time whispers, Sarah, you just have to listen. Listen to the secrets that it doesn't want us to hear. What are you going to do? I wheezed, massaging my head. I need that back, I'm already starting to feel off. I'm sorry, Sarah, the man hissed, seeming less human with each new meeting of him. I'm going to use them both simultaneously, and if that doesn't work, I'll find a way to use 3 and then 4 and then 5. I need to confuse time itself. That is the way to beat it. This truth was spoken to me. Spoken to you? You've gone insane. I need more time with her. If this works, I'll boomerang to 2023 and then back to the spot in 2024. And I'll trick time into thinking that this day is my present. Do you understand? I won't be sent back to 2025. Time will pass normally from this day. Right now, June 24. I'll get to enjoy at a normal speed these last 6 precious months with my beautiful wife. Please, I begged, my head throbbing. Don't take it away from me. But Mr. Milton ignored me, and as he squeezed the 2 boomerangs, one in each palm, I became aware of a crackling in the air. That papery sound in my ears. Became aware of a buzzing and fuzzing around the outline of his body, which was starting to darken. The silhouette. I shrieked as I contemplated what this man was going to do to me, worse than the pain that he had inflicted upon me by handing me the boomerang in the first place. He was leaving me there. That black shape vaporized. He became immaterial right before my eyes, slipping into some hidden crevice of the air, of reality itself. And then, mere moments later, I felt it. The headache, the nausea, all of the symptoms that Mr. Milton had warned would come if I were to be too far from the device while, as he called it was boomeranging. Again, I prepared to die, but there are more terrifying fates than even death, than even the cracking, silhouetted form of Mr. Milton, hunting me through space and time. My heart continued to quicken, and then began this terrifying new phase of my existence that I've come to call rubber banding. You see, without the boomerang in my vicinity, I did not ping back to the present day. I didn't return to my normal life. I didn't manage to see whether I would save my mother with that one lovely day at the theme park. Didn't even see whether Mr. Milton had ever succeeded with his attempt to trick time and to get to spend 6 more months with his wife. Instead, there came pain more tremendous than the agony that I had endured during the original boomerang trip. The world soared past me again, and there came an unfathomable blur of color and sound and cramping organs and the inability to scream no matter how hard I tried. When time slowed to a crawl, I found myself in some wasteland of a city. Some dystopian, uninhabited version of my home city. But what I feared more than the crumbling buildings and overgrown streets were the cut marks on my hands, running through my flesh, just like those on Mr. Milton. Time had physically torn through my flesh, and I feared I would become him given enough time. You see, the boomerang had always pushed me through time within my own body, but now my body had clearly been removed from its time, and that horror was too much for even the universe to bear. After a few hours of lying in the rubble of some urban tip, sobbing at the impossibility of it all, the merciless teeth of time tore through my flimsy flesh again, punished me for my sacrilegious act against reality itself. The world swirled and I found myself in the distant past, in Victorian London. My hands looked bloodier, more cut and more bruised. After another few hours of skulking and hiding in some ginnel, the world shifted again. and then I found myself here back in the present. That was an hour ago. At first, I thought maybe that it had all come to an end. You see, I've returned to the present even without the boomerang. You'd think that would mean that time would flow naturally through me once more. But I still feel that quickening of my heart. Feel that another ping to some distant time, perhaps at the heat death of the universe, lurks just around the corner. And that terrifies me, as I won't survive more than another round or two of rubber banding. I'm covered in deep gashes across my body, and I think that I might have some fractured ribs because I'm struggling to move. At first, the most haunting question was, what has become of the monster who used to be Mr. Milton? Now it is, how long before time rips me to shreds? Damon McCory, Rain, Big Country Allen, Nelson Asada, Die Screaming, Meat Cashier, Malcolm Black, Della Magara, Justin Fodenauer, That One Woodsman, Die Can't Play, Dino, Deggy, MP Massacre 91, Leon Knotts,